So my name is Stephen Cottrell and I am the Archbishop of York. So the Church of England is split into two provinces, a province in the south, the province of Canterbury, a province in the north, the province of York. Each province has an archbishop, so I have oversight of the Church of England right across the north of England. As you can probably hear from my accent, I'm not from Yorkshire. I was actually born and brought up in Essex, and before becoming the Archbishop of York, I was the Bishop of Chelmsford, serving Essex and East London, a county that I love. But I've always had strong Yorkshire connections. My wife was born in Yorkshire. She was born in Harrogate. As a priest, I lived and served in Huddersfield in West Yorkshire for 9 years. 2 of our 3 children were born in Huddersfield and are eligible to play for the county. My brother and his family live in Leeds. And actually, my wife and I, when we got married, we came to Yorkshire. And funnily enough, actually, my very first visit to York Minster was on honeymoon when we came to York for the day. So I feel like an adopted son of Yorkshire. I have a great love for this county, and it's a joy that I've been received so warmly by Yorkshire people. So to be a bishop or an archbishop in the Church of England is what's called a crown appointment. It's not actually the king that makes the appointment. There's a thing called the Crown Nominations Commission, which is largely an elected body made up of people from the church here in Yorkshire, in the York Diocese, and people from the National Church, an independent chair, another bishop from the north who's elected into the process. And they form what you might call like a search committee. And the first I knew about it was when I got a phone call one day saying, you are being considered to be the next Archbishop of York. I was, excited and honoured even to be considered. Then there was an interview. The commission asked to see me. They nominate a name to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister nominates a name to the Crown. You have to pay homage. Of course, this was 2020, so the late Queen Elizabeth was still alive. It's also, if you remember, it was COVID. So I paid homage to the Queen online. It was a huge screen. And so Her late Majesty was quite a small person. She was massive on the screen. And also I became the 98th Archbishop of York on a Zoom conference. I've got a little footnote in history. I hope I'll be the only Archbishop who ever all the legal ceremonies that have to take place for you to become Archbishop were all on a Zoom conference. I had a bottle of champagne and a takeaway curry that night to celebrate. This may seem like a strange answer. Did I want to do it? I certainly feel and felt hugely honoured to be called to it. I also knew that, like any high office or public office, it carries both great responsibilities, but also great scrutiny. You become a public figure. Everything you say is scrutinised and analysed. Every little mistake you make, and the big mistakes as well, because we all make mistakes, become public. I knew there would be a personal cost to it. So did I want it? I'm not sure I can answer that question, but I can say I felt a deep sense of calling. I believe I'm the 98th Archbishop of York because God and the Church has called me to this, and I'm seeking to inhabit the role with joy and thanksgiving. The biggest misconception is people think I'm in charge. The way the Church of England is set up and has been set up since the Reformation is to put in lots and lots of checks and balances to make sure that no one is actually in charge. I think that's rather a good thing. Power and influence is spread throughout the whole church. A downside of the role is sometimes I find myself criticised for not doing things which actually I might have loved to have done, but I don't have the power or the authority to do those things. So it's more of what you might call a moral authority, an influence, but the power to influence is huge. But I think that's probably the biggest misconception. Misconceptions about me, I'm not sure what they are, but I'm sure there are many. But I think probably the biggest one might be, I know more than I do. I think quite often I find myself in meetings where people assume that I know things which actually I don't. So, Cara, that's a really almost impossible question to answer, because one of the joys of my role is that no 2 days are the same. Even this week, I've spent 2 days in London, all day yesterday with senior leaders here. Last Sunday, I was in North Ormsby and Middlesbrough for most of the day. No 2 days are the same, but there are certain constants in the day. My day always begins with prayer, and I do consider that to be the most important thing I do each day. It's the time when I remember that first and foremost, I'm Stephen, not the Archbishop of York. I'm Stephen before God, that God is in charge of the church, not me. And I hope that keeps me humble, keeps me grounded, keeps me in perspective. I mean, I do sometimes, well, not sometimes, often I find I'm treated like I'm a very important person. As you can see, I live in a fancy house. But this isn't my house. I'm just here while I'm Archbishop of York, and then I will leave and pass it on to my successor. So keeping your feet on the ground is very important. And of course, the church, we are in the business of seeking to bring God's peace to the world, the peace, the joy, the goodness that we see in Jesus. I look at it this way. I think unless I'm receiving that good news each day for my own life, unless I know that I need God, I need forgiveness, I need to be humble, I need to be generous, I need to be kind, unless I remember that each day, then how can I possibly share it with others? So my prayer each day is the foundation of my day, and that's a constant. But after that, I could be in the House of Lords, I could be in a parish somewhere in Yorkshire or across the north. I could be working overseas, because the church is an international body. Each day is different. The thing that gives me the greatest joy, and the thing I suppose I love the most about being Archbishop, is being out and about in local communities. So I mentioned I was in North Ormsby in Middlesbrough last Sunday. It was a confirmation service, 20 people being confirmed, a church in a really challenging part of the world. And yet here was this amazing community doing amazing things to serve, one of the poorest and most challenging bits of the country. A real hodgepodge of humanity. Quite a large Nigerian community, because the assistant priest comes from Nigeria, and Nigerian people who live in Middlesbrough have kind of gravitated to this church. A little Iranian community of refugees and asylum seekers and others who settled in this country. And so some of the service was in Farsi as well as in English. And then, of course, the indigenous Middlesbrough community. There we all were. People from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different races, united in our common humanity, united in our love of Jesus Christ. And actually, I kind of drove away thinking, this is a story of Britain that we really need to tell at the moment. We are becoming, I think, I'm not a politician, so I'm not pointing the finger at politicians. I'm not making a political statement in any party political way. But I do think we've become we've become more polarized in recent years. We've become a bit more shouty with each other. And the message of the Christian faith is a message of love your neighbour as yourself. We have a common humanity. And I saw that in North Ormsby. So that gives me great joy to visit these communities and then to speak to them about the good news we have in Jesus Christ. And I think it is part of the richness of Yorkshire life. I mean, there is great diversity in Yorkshire. And yet, I think one thing that unites us is we're all very proud to be Yorkshire. We all live, as it were, with more than one identity. And I rather like that. And we should honour the diversity that we have and find our unity. A difficult question to answer, because there have been so many. I mean, I feel so richly blessed. In my time as Archbishop of York, I preached at the late Queen's Platinum Jubilee service in St Paul's Cathedral. What an honour to do that. Last year, I preached in Westminster Abbey for the service to mark the 80th anniversary of VE Day. I took part in the funeral service of Her late Majesty the Queen in Westminster Abbey and in the St George's Chapel at Windsor, I took part in crowning the King of England. You may have seen it on the television. There was that moment when the king, as it were, divested himself of all his robes and knelt to be anointed for service, and some screens came round for this really very sacred moment. There was only a couple of other people behind the screen for the anointing, and I was one of them. I joked with my family afterwards. I said my left arm is a mass of bruises, because I kept having to pinch myself that Stephen, a boy from quite an ordinary background in Southend in Essex, somehow I've become the 98th Archbishop of York, and now I'm taking part in crowning the King of England. I represented the Church of England at the funeral of Pope Francis. I then represented the Church of England for the inauguration of Pope Leo. I have been blessed to take part in some amazing bits of history. And then just this week, just 2 days ago, I presided over the service whereby Sarah Mullally became the 106th Archbishop of Canterbury and the first ever female Archbishop of Canterbury. What a joyful thing. So I can't quite believe it. There have been all these wonderful bits of history that I've taken part in. But I think I would still say that the very best moments are actually the North Ormsby moments, the ordinary parish moments. In the year of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, in all those celebrations, we had a big service in York Minster, and I posed the question to the congregation, which song is the most well-known song in Britain? And then I had some fun suggesting what the answer might be. And then I said, it might be on Ilkley Moor by Tat. I had the great joy of leading. The nave was packed, a couple of thousand people in York Minster. We all sang on Ilkley Moor by Tat. And it's those moments, they for me are the greatest moments. What's the most Yorkshire thing about me? I think what I love about Yorkshire is that sense that place and continuity and tradition matter. And this might sound a bit weird to you, and it'll sound a bit weird to the listeners, so forgive me. But actually, Essex and Yorkshire, I think, are quite similar. Because Essex, where I was brought up, is also a county where people have quite a sense of place. We're Essex. You don't get that down south very often. I think you do when you go out to the West Country, perhaps in Cornwall and Devon you do. And I do. I have a sense of identity of coming from Essex, and Essex is the butt of so many jokes. We're a persecuted lot. And when I first moved to Yorkshire, when I first moved to Huddersfield, I was anxious because although I knew Yorkshire a little bit, I did think, how will I fit in? I'm a southerner moving north. Will I be accepted? Well, I was. And I sort of fell in love with Yorkshire very quickly. And I think it's that thing about the identity that we have that resonated with my different upbringing in a different place, but with those common things. So I know I'm only an adopted son of Yorkshire, but I think it's that sense of place. And it gets inside you, doesn't it? After living in Huddersfield for 9 years, we then moved to Peterborough. And goodness, I missed the hills. That bleak, austere Pennine landscape. I missed it. It got inside me. And now I'm living in this bit of Yorkshire. I was saying to somebody yesterday, I'm going to Whitby in a few weeks. And I said, the drive from Pickering over the North Yorkshire moors to Whitby, that's got to be one of the greatest drives in the world, not just in England. It is so breathtakingly beautiful. So yeah, that sense of place is, I think, the thing about me which is the most Yorkshire.